Maverick!
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What are you doing there? Why have you been in there so long?
I haven't been in there that long. I've only been in there for like... How long have I been in there? How old am I?
Maverick, we're in danger. Ted has something planned.
You're gonna talk shit and he's right there?
Oh, Jesus.
Wow, dude, that's pretty fucked up.
Maverick, we have to act fast.
Oh, what? Sorry, I'm not listening to you. I'm too busy thinking about which Persona cast is the best. Well, since we live in a YouTube multiverse, I may as well talk about it.
Oh no, we lost Marty? Oh no.
So, today, I want to talk about which Persona cast is the best. Definitively, objectively, no subjective thought here. I want to decide which game has the absolute best cast. But first, we have to cover some ground rules about how I'm going to do this. Let's get started.
Today, we're going to be determining which Persona game has the best cast of main characters. I'm not going to be including Persona 1 and 2 for two reasons. One, I don't think there would be any arguments how Persona 1 has better characters than 3 through 5, and I also haven't played Eternal Punishment because there hasn't been a good port brought to the States. So, sorry Persona 1 and 2 fans. Also, I'm going to try to do this as objectively as possible. Obviously, there will be subjective elements, which you can all disagree with me on by letting me know in the comments, but I'm not going to rate the characters based on design, or their usefulness in battle, or their meme potential, because then it would go to Ryuji.
For real?
So here are the three aspects that I'm going to rate the games on. Cast utilization. This just means I'm going to look at whether the whole cast is utilized properly in the main story. This just means whether or not they're important, serve distinct roles, and have a stake in the events that unfold within the plot. Group dynamic. I'll be looking at how the whole cast interacts with each other, whether they have genuine moments, and whether they all gel together. Social link quality. This means that I'll be looking at the social links within the main cast of each game, determining which is the best regarding their character development, themes, and writing, and picking a winner there. Oh, also, omega spoilers for Persona 3, Persona 4, and Persona 5. Like, game-ruining spoilers. Do not watch this if you haven't played those games or you just don't care about being spoiled. Alright, let's jump into the first competition. Persona 3 has an interesting way in using its cast that no game really has done again. It somehow manages to make each character important to the main plot for the entirety of the game. Junpei has his rivalry with the main character as well as his plot with Chidori. Yukari has her father's death, which ties her to the main character and to Mitsuru because of her family's organization, the Kirijo group. Mitsuru is destined to be the heir to the Kirijo group, which is also connected to the origins of the Dark Hour. But she also has connections to Aigis due to her family creating her, and Akihiko, who has connections to Shinji and Kin because of the death of Kin's mother. And Fuka is, well, Fuka is kind of fucking trash.
Goodbye.
They also have a clear connection to the themes of death and grief, whether that be Yukari's father, Mitsuru's father, Shinjiro's actual death, Kin's mother, Aigis learning what it means to be alive, or Koromaru's connection to his dead master. Each pushes the game's central narrative even further. It's also important to note that these characters don't need their social links maxed to get their second forms to their personas, which a second form to a persona really shows a character's innate growth. I honestly like this more, as not only does it not make your main character the center of everyone's universe, it also allows for perfect pacing with regards to their central character growth within the main narrative. Instead, in Persona 4 and 5, you can technically max each character pretty quickly, or really not at all, which really hurts their character's growth in the main plot, which I'll discuss more in their own sections. The main villain of the game being Nyx, the harbinger of the fall, also lands better, as the development up to the end of the game shows that this party has a direct connection to death, but they're instead choosing to live, and choosing to believe in humanity. If it isn't already apparent, Persona 3's cast perfectly connects to the main plot, and it's really great writing. Persona 4's cast has an interesting dynamic to it. Rather than most characters having a linking relationship like in Persona 3, the cast just happens to be linked because of the small town dynamic, rather than some sort of tragic event or their pasts. The main plot of this game focuses on mysteries. What is the TV world, and who is throwing people into it? This leads to a narrative that is constantly in flux. This interesting dynamic allows for the main cast to be the plot of the sequences in the game in which they're trapped in the TV world. This also means that the cast gets to directly interact with the theme of self-discovery, as the party must venture into the parts of others in which they wish to hide, and these characters must come to accept themselves and the part of themselves that they're hiding. On the one hand, I think that this is pretty brilliant, because it allows for such a deep dive into these characters. But on the other hand, I can see the argument that this results in these characters getting immense development and then they're just dropped for another once their dungeon ends. I think the only characters that this doesn't really affect are Yosuke, because he's essentially a player surrogate when it comes to the investigation, Naoto, because of the fact that she's an investigator and is the linchpin to the investigation, and Teddy, because Teddy doesn't have a dungeon to himself. Even though he does have a moment in Risei's dungeon, the moment still leaves for many questions for his character, so his development is allowed to breathe. In terms of the main antagonist, the main cast has somewhat of a connection to Adachi, because they were mostly all victims to being thrown into the TV world, even if it was technically by Namatame's doing. And the true final boss is a bit of a mixed bag itself, but it sort of lands because of the fact that the characters have realized the importance of truth, self-acceptance, and hope. So I'll sort of give that a pass. Overall, this title is a mixed bag with regards to the importance of these characters in the main plot. While they all help in the investigation, with the exception of their main dungeons, they don't get a lot of development, and they don't get a lot to chew on. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that every party member now has to have a social link associated with them. Unlike Persona 3, the only way to get their second and even third forms of their personas is to max their social link. I like this idea in theory, as it gives a larger incentive to do these social links, but it also takes away a potential moment in the main plot where this could occur. It also makes party member social links like really unbalanced when compared to the others in the game, but that's a different conversation. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. This is Persona 5's worst section. Persona 5 sees its main cast filled with characters who are wronged by society. Each character in the game, much in the same vein as Persona 4, is introduced by a dungeon. However, different from Persona 4, Persona 5 allows you to access these party members at the start of the dungeon, with the exception of Futaba. Also with the exception of Futaba, all the dungeons focus on an antagonist associated with that party member, rather than the party members themselves. At first glance, this looks like it would solve the problem with Persona 4. My issue with Persona 4 was that each character is sort of thrown to the wayside after their initial introduction due to the quick development within their dungeon. Here, they could potentially avoid this issue, as each character is simply fighting against an antagonist that they're connected to, but the intense character development isn't needed to occur in this dungeon, so it could be paced throughout the entirety of the main story instead. So does this happen? Fuck no. This is basically the same issue as Persona 4, but exacerbated. Here, each character really only gets to shine during their introduction dungeon with the exception of a few. This means that each character is placed in the corner for the next character, and they're not really given a lot of important things to do. The exceptions to this rule are Makoto, Futaba, Morgana, and Akechi. Makoto has importance to the main plot because of her connection to her sister. She also supplies the role of Naoto from 4, seeing as how she's sort of the brains of the operation. Futaba possibly has the most importance to the main plot because of the fact that her mother was killed by the main antagonist, meaning she has a deep connection to the events that unfold. And Morgana, much like Teddy, has the mystery behind their identity to drive their character forward. And Akechi has the traitor status to drive his plot forward as well. But the rest are kind of just there. Their reasoning for being there isn't the worst, seeing as how they wish to help others who were wrong the same way that they were, and that's fine. But they need more than that, and they're really not given it. It doesn't mean I don't like these characters, because I do. It just means that they're severely underutilized. Let's look at the main antagonist as well, Shido. He only really has a connection to Futaba and the main protagonist. Every other character simply dislikes him because of his evil deeds, but there's nothing else there. Unlike in Persona 4, where the main cast was actually harmed by the main villain, or 3, where the main villain is an existential threat that they've all decided to rally against due to their development throughout the game, here the cast just doesn't like him because he's a bad dude. And again, like Persona 4, even the true main villain is also worse here. Like in Persona 4, where each party member is connected to the main villain for thematic reasons, here it's a lot muddier because, well, the themes of the game are a lot muddier. I will give Persona 5 credit for the fact that the god enemy doesn't just come out of nowhere. It being Igor is really cool, but that doesn't change the fact that the rest of the party doesn't really have a connection to him, besides the protagonist, and sort of Morgana. Again, I'm sorry, but Persona 5 has terrible cast utilization, and it's definitely not winning this round. Alrighty, let's decide who wins this round. It may be obvious, but I'm giving this round to Persona 3. Each character has development throughout the whole title, except you're trash! And each character interacts with the plot in interesting and meaningful ways. Persona 4 comes in a good second, with the cast having a relevant connection to the themes and final bosses, as well as having pretty fantastic developments during their dungeons, and you know why Persona 5 comes in last. First, I want to point out that the cast here is really diverse. You've got really different personalities, but you also have 3 women, 3 men, a kid, an android, and a dog. I personally love that because it really makes the party dynamic feel unique, which is important in a genre that often has really samey party compositions. The party also interacts in really interesting ways with one another. Like I spoke of in the last round, each character is linked to each other in intricate ways, and this results in really juicy drama. I also love all the interesting scenarios that these characters are placed in. The gang talking about ghost stories with each other, or all the events that happen, or all the trips that they go on. It just makes them feel like a group. A fractured, drama-filled group, but a group nonetheless. My comments on Persona 4 are basically just my comments on 3, except replace the drama with
Fun time.
I think by far, this game has the group that feels the most like friends. Again, they're always placed in fun and interesting scenarios. A lot of people say this game isn't as mature as Persona 3, and while I certainly don't agree with that, I think that they say this because of the amount of lighthearted material the party is able to establish in this game. There's always a general sense of fun and friendship, and it really comes out in almost any interaction that they have as a group. The group here feels like a watered down version of Persona 4's sense of fun. There's still that fun dynamic between the characters, but they aren't really given events to chew on like in 4. The school events and the trip are really short, and there really isn't that camaraderie that is felt in the other titles. They really just don't do a lot together outside of the dungeons and discussions about the antagonists. And if we compare it to Persona 3, there really isn't any drama here either. There's the forced drama between Morgana and Ryuji, and the obvious drama with Akechi. But besides that, there's really nothing else. Even when there could be interesting drama with Haru after her father's death, they really don't take advantage of that material either. Again, I like the dynamic here, but it's also not very strong. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to constantly beat up on Persona 5. When it comes to group dynamic, it's kinda gotta be a tie. I think Persona 3 and Persona 4 both have really interesting dynamics, whether it be for drama or whether it be for just feeling like a family. I think they're both great. Here's my ranking for every party member's social link for each game. Remember, this doesn't contain Royal. Kasumi may be absolutely amazing, but since the title isn't released in North America yet, I obviously can't rate her. But besides her, I wanted to look at all the main characters, even if they're split between titles, like is the case with Persona 3. The mission here is to determine which is the main cast that's the best, not which game has the best cast. Because if that was the case, I would only have Mitsuru, Fuka, and Yukari ranked for Persona 3's base game, since Aigis' link wasn't introduced until FES, and all of the men didn't have links until the female route of Portable. Also, to try to be as objective as possible, I ranked these social links based on 3 criteria: character development, connection to the game's themes, and pacing, such as whether most of the events in the social link actually have a purpose to the overall story that they're trying to tell. Let's begin. Persona 3's social links are, weird. The social links here are pretty meandery. This isn't to say that I hate them, because some of them I have really high up, but when they're bad, they're bad. Let's look at Ken's, for example. At first glance, it's not half bad. His social link is getting over his obsession over his own age, as well as dealing with his mother's death. That's simple enough, but it's also really bogged down by this extremely weird and creepy romance that pervades the entire social link. Not only does this hurt the pacing, but also, he's only 11 and your main character is 17? And he also addresses why this is a bad thing and suggests that you hide it. This is the weirdest relationship in Persona, even weirder than Kawakami. And random tangent, but Persona can do a relationship with a literal child and a teacher, but we can't get same-sex relationships? What the f***? The good in this game is great though. Aigis' social link being about what makes someone human and why humanity is beautiful is, well, beautiful. It perfectly fulfills the hopeful nature underlying the whole game and tells us more about why and how Aigis is becoming more like a person. It's really, really great. The rest range from good, such as Shinji, Mitsuru, and Yukari, to really meandery, such as Junpei and Akihiko's. And yes, Koromaru does have a social link, and it's not bad, but I mean, he's a dog, so... Oh, one more thing. Fuka is the worst character in the whole Persona series. She's probably the only party member in a Persona game that I legitimately think is actually bad. She's boring, has an absolutely terrible voice actress, doesn't have very good connections to the themes of the game, and her social link is awful. It's the start of the really boring cooking social links, and this one is much worse than Yukiko's, because at least Yukiko says something about her as a character. So partly because of Fuka, gonna have to say that Persona 3 definitely has no chance of winning this round. God, are there some great ass social links here. Kanji and Naoto are some of my favorite social links in any Persona game, and they do exceedingly well with the lens that I set here. I've got a video planned of her Kanji, so look out for that, but I love Naoto's as well. It goes into why she wanted to become a detective in the first place by using a really fun scavenger hunt, and it also explains her passion very, very well. They fit the themes of the game perfectly, they're well paced, and they're very well written. And honestly, that's mostly true for the rest of the social links in this game as well. I really only think that Chie's is the only bad one here, as it doesn't really tell me any more about her character, and it feels pretty aimless. But if I'm not saying good things, there's really not much else to say here. Great social links, A+. All of these social links range from fine to great, with Yusuke's being exceptional, in my opinion. The fact that this social link focuses on his dedication to art, but presents it in a way that depicts art as a conduit for meaning rather than just a passion is really interesting. It also has some really nuanced discussions about Madarame and the gray rather than black and white nature of people and morality, which the game as a whole is really lacking this discussion. It also says a lot, and I think the fact that it does that while also being a social link about art, and also doing this, is really great. The rest are good too. I'd say the weak link here is On's because of the lack of a lot of substance, but I still don't think it's awful. All right, it's time to declare the winner of this round. This one was kind of hard to decide since I really do love the social links in 5, but I've got to give the win to Persona 4. Persona 4's social links are all great, with the exception of one, but they're great. They're really, really great. But this isn't to say that the other two don't have great social links as well. Generally, these writers do well all around, and I think that that's pretty commendable. So, the question is finally here. Which game has the best cast of characters? It's Persona 3 and Persona 4. All right, hear me out. I think these two titles are tied, not only because of their actual tie and the wins within the rounds, but also because it really depends on what we're looking for. Persona 3 has a better grasp on drama and main story incorporation of the characters. Each character matters throughout the whole game, and I really think that that should be focused on. The characters also interact with one another without the specific interference of the main character, and the social links are mostly great. Persona 4, however, makes the group really feel like a party. The main story's focus on an investigation really makes the plot feel a little lopsided with character development, but each character really fills a role. They all interact in organic ways that really makes them all feel like a family by the end of the game. The social links are also the best in the series for any party members, in my opinion, and I don't think that that's anything to scoff at. But again, it really depends on what appeals to you. I want to know, which of these do you think is the true winner?
So what do you think? Do you think my reasoning was good, or do you disagree with me? If you disagree with me, you can let me know in the comments. And as always, you can subscribe and like the video. Both of those super help my channel, so I'd absolutely love for you to do that. And you can follow me on my socials up here. I've got Instagram and I've got Twitter, both of which I use to update people on videos, and I just mess around on them as well. So what'd you think about the video?
It was alright.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Ted is dangerous.
Look, I know you want to be the only demon in my life, but Ted is here to stay, so stop making lies up about him.
He's chanting right now.
Stop.